All right, let's talk about a part of the Bible where, let's be honest, a lot of us just start skimming. It's that long, super detailed section of blueprints in the book of Exodus. You know the one. It feels like this epic adventure story suddenly turns into a dry construction manual. But what if it's not a detour? What if these chapters are actually the whole point? Let's dive in.
I mean, think about the story so far. You've got plagues, this incredible escape from Egypt, the Red Sea parting. God shows up on a mountain with thunder and lightning to deliver the Ten Commandments. The energy is just off the charts. And then, bam, the story just slams on the brakes. And for chapter after chapter, we get architectural plans for a tent. It makes you wonder, why? What is going on here?
So, to be specific, we're looking at Exodus, chapters 25 all the way through 40, and it is all about the instructions for building this portable temple, this tabernacle. And for so many readers, it just feels like the story gets completely bogged down in measurements and fabrics and all these details about priestly clothes. And the way it's all laid out is kind of weird too. First, God gives all these detailed instructions. But then, the story gets interrupted by that famous, or infamous, story of the golden calf, right? Where the people just decide to build their own idol? And only after that whole mess do we get this long report that, hey, they finally built the tabernacle. And it's almost a word-for-word repeat of the instructions. It just feels repetitive. But check this out. Biblical scholar Dr. John Oswalt says this weird structure is totally on purpose. He uses this great Frank Sinatra analogy to explain it. You have the divine instructions, that's God saying, do it my way. Then you have the golden calf, which is basically humanity's theme song. I did it my way. And the final report? That's the resolution. It's the people coming back around and saying, okay, we did it God's way. That contrast, right there, is the key to the whole thing. So what is God's way all about, then? Well, according to Dr. Oswalt, these chapters aren't some boring appendix at the end of the story. No, they are the climax. This is the grand finale of the entire book of Exodus. The real reason for this whole journey is right here, in these blueprints.
Oswalt breaks down the whole book into 4 big revelations. First, you see God's power in rescuing the people from Egypt. Then, you see his providence, how he takes care of them in the desert. Then come the principles, the law given on Mount Sinai. But the final and most important revelation is his presence. This is the moment God comes to actually live with his people.
And that changes everything. See, the goal wasn't just about getting the Israelites to a piece of real estate, to the promised land. The real goal was for God to come down from that scary, distant, thundering mountain and to set up his home right in the middle of their camp. It's all about closing that distance.
So what the story is really saying is that our biggest problem isn't physical slavery. It's this spiritual distance, this alienation from our Creator. And the tabernacle, this divine mobile home, is the solution. It's the blueprint for how to bridge that gap and get back into a relationship.
Okay, so if this tent is so important, what does it actually tell us? Let's take a quick tour, because the layout itself is like a theological map. It tells a story.
And right away, you see what the priorities are. Unlike any normal building plan, God's instructions don't start with the fence or the foundation. No, they start at the very center, with the single most important object, the Ark of the Covenant. And they work their way outwards from there. It starts with the heart of the matter. The whole design is basically a journey inward. You start in the outer courtyard, which is a public space where sacrifices happen. Then you move into the holy place, which is more restricted, just for the priests. And finally, you have the most holy place, the Holy of Holies, which is where God's presence is centered. Every step you take is a step closer to God. And the materials themselves? Wow, they tell a story of value and importance. We're talking gold, silver, bronze, and these incredibly rich fabrics associated with kings, blue, purple, and scarlet. This wasn't just some functional tent. It was a palace designed to be beautiful, to communicate worth, royalty, and purity. The idea is that God engages all of our senses. Now, a temple with 3 distinct parts might have seemed pretty normal back then, but this is where the story takes a hard left turn and does something completely radical. You see, this kind of 3-part structure, courtyard, holy place, most holy place, was actually a pretty common temple design in the ancient Near East. The Israelites' neighbors would have looked at the layout and thought, okay, yeah, we get it, that's a temple. But what they put in that most sacred innermost room, that changed everything.
In a typical pagan temple, the holiest spot was for an idol, and that idol represented some force of nature, right? The whole point of that religion was to try and manipulate that god, to bargain with it to get what you want. It's all about control. But in the tabernacle, that sacred space held the Ark of the Covenant, which contained God's law. This represented a relationship, one based on grace. And the goal wasn't to control God, it was to become more like Him.
Dr. Oswalt brings up this incredible quote from Dennis Kinlaw that just nails it. Two people doing the same thing are not necessarily doing the same thing. Just because the buildings looked similar on the outside, it doesn't mean they were the same on the inside. The form was familiar, but the meaning, the very heart of what was going on, was a complete 180.
Okay, so this leaves us with one last really big question. If the whole point of this building was to bring God and people together, why was it so complicated? Why all the rules, the rituals, the layers?
I mean, really, if the goal is relationship, why not just have an open-door policy? Why do you need all these veils and special clothes and all these things that seem to create separation? To explain this idea of God's holiness, Dr. Oswalt uses this really powerful analogy. He says, the unclean simply cannot exist in the presence of the clean, any more than a piece of straw can exist in a fire. It's not because the fire is angry at the straw, it's just that the very nature of fire consumes straw. And that's why a go-between, a mediator, was absolutely necessary. This is the job of the priest, to stand in that dangerous gap, to represent the people to God and to represent God to the people, to bridge the gap between the infinite and the finite. So from this theological point of view, the entire complex system, the priests, the clothes, the sacrifices, it was all a temporary setup. It was all designed to get people ready, to point them forward to an ultimate, perfect mediator who could finally bridge that gap for good.
So those chapters that seem so boring, turns out they're actually this profound statement about restoring a broken relationship, about moving from distance to presence. And that really just leaves us with a final question to chew on. This ancient blueprint was all about bridging the gap between humanity and God. What does that model for relationship mean for us today?